Depth of talent.
Look at that guy smiling at you.
I was too.
She went.
Look at that guy smiling at you.
All right,
know.
we want to
Does yours
welcome
come up in your
everybody
picture?
to
Yeah.
tonight's board meeting of the Cedar Rapids Community School District's Board of Education. There's the microphone. All right, so with that, we call the meeting to order. Would somebody like to read the approval of the agenda?
I move that the agenda of Monday, August 13th, 2018 Board of Education meeting be approved as set forth, and that each item is considered ready for discussion and/or action.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Director Humbles. Aye. Director Meisterling.
Aye.
Director Anhalt.
Aye.
Director Borcherding.
Aye.
Director Jacobo.
Aye.
And President Laverty.
With that, we'll move to Dr. Buck's report.
All right, very good. Thanks, President Laverty. So a few weeks ago, several media outlets ran stories about the efforts underway to improve school safety and security. So installing push-button lock system in our schools is just one of several improvements that are underway. Our district's Building and Grounds Department has spent the past several months installing these lock systems. Our goal is to have all high schools completed before the end of the month, and new locks in all the buildings by the end of the school year. Along with new locks, the door hardware is also ADA compliant. When Jayhawks return to school next week, it's right on us, isn't it? Don't worry, it's fine, it's fine. They'll have a like-new gymnasium floor welcoming them just in time for their first PEP assemblies of the year. New flooring was also installed in several classrooms in Kennedy's Science Wing. These rooms now have luxury vinyl tile, which sounds fancy but simply more durable than the traditional vinyl and requires less maintenance, resulting in cost savings over time. And the auditoriums at Kennedy, Wash, and Jefferson all received massive makeovers this summer as well. So these are just a few examples of the hard work that's gone into utilizing saved funds as well as honoring the PEPL promise over the summer. You may notice our ads around town this year celebrating our district's world-class educators and future-ready learners. This opportunity to celebrate our staff and students is possible thanks to a donor and proud Kennedy High School parent and volunteer. Ads will run on one billboard each month, and our first, which you see here, kicked off the series on the Highway 100 billboard. Thanks to our future-ready learner, Harper, who will be in kindergarten at Viola Gibson this year for modeling for us. Keep your eyes open for others that'll pop up around town throughout the year. This year, one of several projects you'll notice produced by our communications team will be a Did You Know video series, which will illuminate various interesting facts about our school district. Think of it as a behind-the-scenes look like this one.
The district's transportation department has been getting ready for the new school year with a fleet-wide bus inspection on Monday. Twice a year, representatives from the Iowa Department of Education and the Iowa State Patrol look at every school bus in the state to make sure that they are safe for transporting students. The inspectors look to see if safety signals are working, emergency exits are accessible, and first aid kits are supplied. Officials also look underneath to inspect the frames of all 114 district buses.
All right, very nice. Well done. Football season's upon us, and while the sport is enjoyable for so many of us, there are also risks of injury associated with the sport and many others. Our district, and especially our employees in health services, are very excited that free concussion insurance is now available for all Iowa student athletes in grades 9 through 12 participating in the practice or play of interscholastic sports sanctioned by the IHSAA. These sports include baseball, basketball, bowling, cheerleading, cross country, football, golf, soccer, swimming, tennis, track and field, and wrestling. The Iowa High School Athletic Association and its title sponsor, the Iowa Farm Bureau, have secured the Headstrong Concussion Insurance Program for Iowa student athletes for the 2018-19 school year. The Headstrong Concussion Insurance Program was specifically developed to ensure student athletes from the high cost of concussion treatment and neurological follow-up. Sandy Byard, who oversees health services for our district, was very excited to share this news with us. And last Thursday morning, 86 new educators were welcomed to the district. The K-12 teachers started their 4-day orientation with learning about technology in the classroom, curriculum, and the Marzano instructional design framework. As you might guess, the excitement and enthusiasm were palpable. The first day of school is next week, August 23rd, and we're all eager to welcome our young learners back to our classrooms. With that.
That's awesome. Thank you, Dr. Buck. And with that, are there any board reports, any comments from the board tonight? I know we're all invited to the opening ceremonies, so we're looking forward to that and getting everybody off to a great school year. So next we'll move into communications, delegations, and petitions. We have one request to speak before the board tonight. And I'll just remind you that we have 5 minutes, and Laurel Day, the board secretary, will help time the 5 minutes on the screens. And if you could just give us your name and your address, and if there's any organization that you're representing, we'd appreciate that.
My name is Chris Cronbaugh, and I live at 427 26th Street. The day after the last school board meeting I attended back in June, which included the most recent update on more fully implementing Marzano's programming into the district, an article crossed my feed explaining that the Gates Foundation confirmed that they were removing teacher evaluations from their funding umbrella. The foundation had determined that the $200 million they had invested had little impact on student or school success. Other variables they determined have impact, some directly substantial: early childhood education, family support, and nutrition specifically. But teacher evaluation schemes do not. While this is not a surprise to any teachers who have worked in the classroom for more than a few years, it is surprising to many reform experts who have chased the trend down the often lucrative and career-building rabbit hole. I'm asking the board and district leadership to think more critically about, question, ask for genuinely valid and reliable research, since there's much to question about Marzano. I ask the board to be supportive of leadership, but to avoid groupthink. Spend some time looking at critiques of Marzano and ask, is this genuinely the direction you want our district to go? Just as the district loses students and families, you are and will continue to lose gifted teachers and administrators to surrounding districts. Intelligent people want autonomy and genuine backing. They see through lip service, smiling togetherness, and half-hearted support. It seems to me that the Marzano scheme takes our once robust, highly respected, and independent-minded district that created curriculum that others sought us out to use and serves out a somewhat thin gruel of prescribed perfectionism. Why are we following and not leading? Why are we following trends and not creating them? If you genuinely believe in our faculty, why not treat them as professionals and stop encumbering them by creating more new bureaucracies for them to attend to in addition to their work? There are many critiques of Marzano. Some point out flaws in the meta-analyses he uses to prop up and support his work. There seems to have been a rich banter back and forth regarding these issues over the years. But there are also other criticisms, some by leaders in districts that have implemented the Marzano framework. They have come to see it as far from the silver bullet it is often promised to be. One administrator writes, "Many great teachers in our district have found great success without Marzano. One AP calculus teacher who happens to have an amazing pass rate of 92% told his supervising administrator straight up, 'You won't find a learning goal or any performance scales in my classroom.' Obviously not a Marzano fan. The administrator had to make a decision. Does he really want to nail and nitpick a teacher with a 92% pass rate in AP calculus? Additionally, this particular teacher, if you give him a bad evaluation, has been known to print it out and post it on his whiteboard for all his students to see. I've heard it said that the Marzano," this is also from the same administrator, "I've heard it said that the Marzano teacher evaluation system is great at getting rid of bad teachers. The problem is it is also great at getting rid of great teachers and administrators. Using the Marzano system to get rid of bad teachers is like starving yourself to lose weight. You'll lose the fat, the weak teachers, but you'll also lose muscle, the strong teachers. When you finally start feeding yourself again, the fat will quickly return, but the muscle will be lost for a longer time." And where are the amazing results, same administrator, where are the amazing results from using the research-proven Marzano strategies? Our district scores and grades went down in many areas in schools, Why haven't 6 years of Marzano transformed our district? If something is not delivering results and at the same time it is driving great teachers out of the profession, we must make a data-driven decision and move on into another direction for the sake of our students and our teachers. Finally, and then I'll end, one critique I read put it this way: there is a purpose to the powerful desire to uphold these types of programs. It is that they make the complex nature of learning simple. Politicians think that educating students is as straightforward as pre-test and post-test. It throws validation behind the idea that there's a crisis in teaching and reasons to take teachers in hand, take them on, deprofessionalize teaching, attempt to make teachers untrustworthy to the public. There are people.
Mr. Crowell, your time is up.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Mr. Cronbaugh, I would just say if you have written comments, you can certainly email those to the board if you'd like to share more. Thank you. All right. There are no other communications before the board, so we'll move on to the consent agenda. And are there any items on the consent agenda that board members would like to pull for informational purposes or for question or comment?
I'd like to pull BA 19056 for a separate vote since I sit on the ASAC board.
Okay. Any other items? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented except for BA 19056?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
This will be a roll call vote on all the items in the consent agenda except for BA 19056.
Director Meisterling.
Aye.
Director Anhalt.
Aye.
Director Jansen.
Aye.
Director Borcherding. Aye. Director Jacobo.
Aye.
Director Humbles. President Laverty.
Aye. And then we'll vote on BA 19056.
That would just be a voice vote.
A voice vote. So all of those in favor of approving the agreement for the Area Substance Abuse Council for 2018-2019 school year signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstentions? All right. And the motion passes. All right. Next, we'll move on to our learning and leadership under District Engagement Survey Summary, and I believe Dr. Buck and Rod Dooley are presenting that information. Thank you.
You want me to give any framing, Rod, or you can jump into it?
Hey, President Laverty and directors, I'm excited to share with you the employee engagement survey for the year. I think last year I shared the data for that survey. So as I get into it, I'm not going to go through every slide, but we'll get into really some of the trend data. This first chart talks about that the survey, so we have a partner, K-12 Insight, that administers a survey for us. We want that confidentiality in place so that employees can give us the feedback. So they measure overall engagement, and we'll show you what that looks like. And then they measure these drivers of engagement, and you can see the different areas of drivers. Those that are in the blue pretty much didn't change year over year, but some in the black did change. You can see that for this survey, we've got a category called mission and visions. We used to have a category called shared values. District leadership and school department leadership got broken out. It was just one leadership clump in the past. So those are some of the changes that were made to the survey. And again, the K-12 partner, they really drive these changes. We do discuss them, but as they administer this engagement survey to many other partners, we pretty much use their standard survey. We may add some items that are specific to us, but for the most part, we follow their guidance. So participation, you can see last year we had about 1,400 employees, a little over that, respond. This year we had over 1,500 respond, so an improvement of participation. One of the drivers of that is we, last year in transportation, we really didn't have as many participate because they were out on routes and access to computer. What we actually did is set up computers in their break room for them to be able to take it when they, either before they left on their route or when they came off their route. So we got more participation there. So overall insights before I get really into the data, I would say that the survey overall is about the same to slightly down. You'll see, look at some of the trend just to see what that looks like. So overall engagement is at 73%, which is a point down from the previous year. So not significant change year over year. People do still plan to be with the district. That they're wanting to stay with the district came out strong in the survey. But you can see 68% of participating teachers who are engaged or highly engaged. That's down 4 points from the previous year.
And Rod, this is just teachers or all staff?
Everything is all staff that I'm going to show you, but this bullet point of 68% was specific to teachers.
Okay.
17% of staff still feel that morale is not high in the district. Feedback and recognition dimensions does show that we could improve there, making sure that we're recognizing employees for their accomplishments. And then the district leadership dimension also has opportunity for improvement. And again, that was some of the same things that we heard last year in the survey. We asked the question, what word best describes how you feel about your work? You can see the difference between 2016 to 2017. Overwhelmed is still there. But challenging work, rewarding, frustration still pops out. So some of the same themes that we saw a year ago. So overall engagement. Overall engagement really is measured by how many respond in the highly and engaged categories if you add those two together. So again, it was 74% in 2017 and 73% in 2018. So if you look at the items that actually make up the engagement index, you can see here, I'm proud to work for the district. Employment gives me a sense of feeling of accomplishment. I'm engaged. My work is interesting, and I am motivated to contribute more than expected. So the colors there, the green is this year's result, the blue is last year's result. So you can see, again, pretty strong results here in these items. This continues it on the next page where we see maybe a little lower areas of professional growth, referring a friend to work with the district, working with my principal or direct supervisor, and optimistic about the future. So a lot of change has been happening in the district over the last, I'd say, couple of years, and maybe even longer than that. And so really us doing a better job of clarifying where we're going and helping people understand that and help them know how they can be engaged in that is an opportunity for us. So the mission and vision dimension, you can see the results there. Very high, that they're familiar with the vision and mission, and that they do know how that they can fulfill the role that they play in that. But we still have, again, areas of opportunity of really communicating that and helping that align to people's work. Those other items where you see the NA, this is a new question this year is what that would refer to. More on mission and vision. So the one that you see, the 22%, everyone in the district is doing what they can to fulfill the district's mission. We have an opportunity to, again, help people understand what it is and how what they do contributes to the mission. So this is the district leadership category. Now, we don't like things that are below 50%, and you can see that we've got great opportunity as district leaders to continue to demonstrate the leadership that employees are looking for. So just that actions consistent with words, understand their professional needs, reasons behind decisions, encourage employees to share ideas to improve in performance and overall staff morale. But you can see on the school leader or their department leader, stronger results. Now, we asked the K-12 about this difference, and they said, we see this difference in every district, that people feel much closer to their direct supervisor, their building leaders, than they do the district. So this trend of giving district leader lower scores is a normal thing, but that doesn't mean that you should ignore the data. You still need to continue to work to improve. Feedback and recognition, again, this is an area where there's opportunity for us to continue to recognize people for the great work that they're doing. Work environment, this gets to, do I have what I need to get the work done? Do we live to the high professional standards? Again, the materials, do I have the support of my colleagues? And we get at that workload. Do I feel the workload is reasonable? Some others around work environment. Direct supervisor encourages collaboration, and there's mutual respect among staff. Career growth and training. District encourage continued education, professional growth. You can see that little slight improvement on that, and some improvement on all of these of providing training that helps them be more effective in their job. And so this whole area of professional development looks like we're making some slight progress on it. Then there are just some additional topics of morale and sharing ideas and opinions, level of trust. Belonging is really important. Do people feel a sense of belonging to the organization, the loyalty, they want to continue to work, having a friend at work. A lot of people have friends at work, so that's a really positive thing. Student growth. We wanted to really understand our staff's perception of are we meeting students' learning needs, setting those high expectations. Do we believe students can succeed here? And this is an area I think that we have great opportunity. We'd love to see all of our staff say that all students can be successful here in the district. So this is, again, an area of opportunity for us to continue to grow people's mindsets. We also, again, around mindset, cultural mindset. So we measure these cultural responsiveness where it measures whether staff take time to learn students' cultures. Do we consider how we may alter some of our instruction and our materials to support people from different cultures? And so you can see staff says we still have opportunity here to grow. I do want to point out on this one, staff members have received adequate training in cultural awareness, and cultural awareness training has helped staff members be more effective. And as you know, we started with some pilot schools this year, so we can see a little slight improvement. I think once we have that throughout the whole district, we'll see a lot more improvement. So all that data, we also asked kind of the open-ended question, how can the district improve or sustain employee engagement and satisfaction? And the K-12 took all of those comments and summarized them into these 5 areas. Behavior management is still a problem. We heard that last year. More opportunities to provide input, better professional development opportunities. Workload has been steadily increasing, and school and district leaders need to be more visible. So some of the same themes that we heard last year, and again, we started down a path last year of working some items, but we've got to continue that. So this last chart here really is around what are some of those actions that we have begun or new actions that we need to undertake. So around behavior management, we need to continue to implement the multi-tiered system of supports. I think we got a good start. In some schools it's working really well, but we want that across the district in every school. And so really implementing those with fidelity to help not only on the socio-emotional side, but also on the academic side. Because we want to make sure that we're engaging students academically so that we don't have some of those social-emotional issues pop up. But we also want to instruct in that as well. We have increased this year the number of behavior technicians in the buildings, so there will be more support around behavior management through those roles and continue to implement restorative practices. More opportunities to provide input. Dr. Buck continues to hold listening sessions. You held how many again this spring?
16 or 17.
Okay. And so continue to engage staff around that. We also, through the negotiations process, identified some areas where we want to pull some work groups together to get their input on how to solve some problems, how to continue to improve some of our workplace programs. And we want to, as we go out and do visits in schools, we want to continue to gather input. It isn't going in and just observing how things are going. It really is, give us some feedback, give us some input. And so we're going to be really intentional this year of doing that. Better professional development opportunities. One of the things that we're trying to be mindful of is what are those things that schools are identifying in their school improvement plans, and how can we provide professional development that's going to support them? So we're going to focus from a district level at helping provide professional development around PLCs, and we also heard in the survey they do want more professional development around the intercultural mindset. And so we already have that really filtered into our plan. Workload has been steadily increasing. And this one, again, we've heard a lot around it. And one of the things that we really are trying to do is focus and align the initiatives around the HRS model. Instead of having all these one-off initiatives, which I think was well-intended, some high-leveraging things, but may have just been too much at one time without really seeing the results of it. And so we really are trying to narrow that focus to align it to the HRS framework. And in school and district leaders to be more visible. You see the first point on here. At the district level, we're going to implement, and Ms. Noreen is really all over this, no meetings on Friday at the district level to ensure that we're out in the buildings. We want to make sure that we are visible, that we're helpful, that we're supportive in those buildings, which also is leading us to kind of recast the roundtable meetings and really get out into those buildings and help them focus on the things that matter to them that they've identified in their school improvement plan. That we will be kind of some eyes on the ground for them in giving them feedback on the things that they have identified as priorities. So that really is our plan, to really be out in those buildings more, to engage staff more as we're out in those buildings. So these are the things that we have laid out in our plan to work on over the course of this year. Now, there are other things that we are continuing to work on. If you remember, the sub came up as an issue last year. There's still a team working on that, and we're continuing to implement items around that. So that's it. Any questions around the employee engagement?
Questions?
Go ahead, Jen. Oh, first of all, I think this is great that we're looking at the state and really using it as an opportunity for growth in areas. That's fantastic stuff, and I appreciate the leadership there, so thank you for that. What date was the data gathered? Was it gathered on a specific date or
Yeah,
like
this
a
was
week?
in the April timeframe.
April. Thank you.
I echo what Jennifer says about, appreciating that there's a wealth of information here, and I'm sure you guys are just at the tip of the iceberg starting to dive down into it. But as I'm sure you have, I have concerns about this district leadership piece of it. And knowing all the work that we've been doing, or you all have been doing about moving this forward, are you looking any more at, or more into how, what, and where communications take place? Because my concern, these numbers weren't great to begin with, and they've dropped even further. So I think, we have Aqui's position in there to help with the PR outside. Are we looking inside too? Okay, Noreen's nodding, and so I'm assuming yes. And
Yes, we absolutely are looking inside, and so Aqui's role in that organization is trying to be more strategic with not only external communication, but
Right.
internal communication.
Right.
You heard, do we explain the reasons behind decisions?
Right.
So how are we doing that and making sure that we do that? And so there is a big focus on making sure that there are regular communications and updates to staff. Dr. Buck, Noreen, you want to add anything, or Aqui even?
Yeah, I'm happy to. So the high reliability school framework is important, as this board has heard and as we've been talking about, as a school-based model for improving outcomes for kids. So when you think about level 1 of HRS, safe, supportive, collaborative environments, 2 of the key dimensions of the 8 dimensions that drive high reliability schools is staff voice in discussions and decision-making in support of the school improvement plan. So it is a model that at its heart is about engaging staff authentically in the decision-making and the problem-solving, and they have a role then in bringing it to life in their school context. So one of the things, so when you think about, yes, it's about communication, and it's really about authentically engaging staff in the work that matters most to get improved outcomes for kids, which is what we all desire. So when you think about the high reliability school framework and you start to trim away other things that have been sort of the one-offs, and you really get down to the most important work, which is implementing a tier-based behavior system. So here's how this would have worked in the past. The district office says you need a tier-based system for behavior, because we recognize that the best way to get at attending to student behavior is to have tiered support. Agreed upon expectations for all kids and behaviors of adults for all, and that should get about 80% of kids across the finish line as it relates to student behavior. Then you'll have another 15% or so of kids that you'll need some sort of targeted intervention strategy to better support their behavior, because they're in need of something in addition to what is helpful for all kids. And then you'll have at the tip of that another 5% or so of kids that are going to need really specific additional support and instruction. So the old way that worked was, this is a long answer to get at your question, I promise. The old way that worked is ELSC said, we see this as a solution. Schools, here's the solution. Make the solution come to life.
Right.
Okay? As opposed to an HRS, we would say to schools, in designing your safe, supportive, collaborative environment, if you have a system you believe is more effective than a tier-based system for supporting and improving student behavior, you have voice in doing that. You have the authority to do something different. And what we know, so we could say, you don't have to have a tiered 1, 2, and 3 system. Just know that we want what you want, which is improve student learning outcomes. And we know one of the most effective ways to do that is to have a tier-based behavior system.
Right.
So when we really get into a mindset and experience for our staff, where we're implementing Marzano's high reliability school framework with fidelity, I believe many of these markers will move because staff will be heard, they will have autonomy in their work environment, and they will be part of the problem-solving solution. And in that model, they come to the ELSC and they say, hey, in order to deliver on this promise, we understand what we're trying to accomplish. ELC leaders, here's what we need from you in support. That is a very different conversation from being told how to solve the problem. So to me, the answer to the question then is, how do we better authentically engage staff around the things we know matter most? Safe, supportive, collaborative environment, improved teaching, and guaranteed and viable curriculum.
Well, and
So-
part of the reason why I asked is to have such disparate numbers between district leadership and your school building leadership, for me, raises the question of, isn't their message the same? If the direct supervisor is consistent with his or her words, and they're speaking the words that the district is feeling. So understanding that disconnect is a piece of it, and I know that this is an anonymous kind of thing, but just the other part of my curiosity is, can we break down some of these into work groups to understand if there are outliers in response based on a specific work group?
Sure, yes. We can break it down at the school level for sure. Work group, it just depends on how many respondents we have. but
I'm
we
assuming you
certainly
do a
can.
5 rule, or, because.
10, I think it is.
Okay, because the other question was, when it comes to the diversity thing, could you separate out and see that the schools that it had been introduced in were representative of that higher response rate?
Absolutely.
Well,
Okay.
and part of the, it's probably not surprising that there's variance across, that a common theme across districts is school leaders score more highly than district office leaders. That's probably not surprising because when I was a principal, I had a different relational experience because I was in and around folks all the time. So if something came up that seemed like it wasn't sort of in alignment with what we were trying to do, I could actually just sit down with the person, we'd have the conversation and sort of work through, like, here's what I hear you say we're thinking about and doing, Brad, and here's how I see you behaving, and we could just have that kind of a conversation. With district support, there isn't the opportunity to have those sort of formal and informal opportunities to have discussion around what it is we're trying to accomplish together. Having said that, I'm not comfortable with where the variance in scores is. I mean, from 60-some to 20-some is cause for additional discussion. And I think it also points to we're in the messy middle.
Yep.
So organizationally, we're in the messy middle as we try to do even better things for our kids and support our staff.
That transition,
So,
that next
yeah.
year there is that. So, okay.
And my guess is, to own it, my guess is district office leadership have behaved in ways that are out of alignment with what they say they want to accomplish. So I'm not gonna just say this is a perception thing. There are probably examples. Now, what I would invite is, and this is the struggle I see organizationally for us, what I would invite is when people see misalignment between leaders' comments and their action, that we have the ability to sit down with one another and say, hey, here's what we say we're trying to accomplish together. Here's how I see you behaving. Help me understand what seems to be the difference between what you're saying you want and what we actually are seeing from you in behavior.
And I think that that's a new and uncomfortable environment that people have to get used to, you know? But understanding that that is a true statement, whether it comes from you, whether it comes from Akwi, whether it comes from Noreen, that there is some value and validity behind that I think it just needs to continue to ramp.
Yeah. So, I mean, your question's a great one. It's around communication, it's around engagement, it's authenticity, it's alignment between behavior and speaking, and, yeah.
The only thing I would or highlight is that Rod kind of pointed at me about the Noreen rule of Fridays. We, in order to honor each other and the schools that we are supporting, Rod and I are directly supporting the high schools, but we support all schools. But we've divided our teams so that we can be present on Fridays, not just to be in the schools, but to gather the input from teams, especially on those professional learning afternoons. And then we can, if they identify resources or something that they need, that we can respond to that.
Well, it's having that face.
Exactly.
And the familiarity
So
associated
that
with
our
it.
visits are not just showing up, but
Oh my
also
God, Noreen's here.
purposeful. Right. We want them to be purposeful, and so engaging those conversations. And so for that to happen, I can't schedule other meetings with Rod and Dr. Buck and with Linda and with Dave on Fridays at the ELSC. So we are honoring that we have to be, 20% of our time needs to be in our schools at least.
Are there other questions from the board? Nancy?
Looking at the participation and the response, and I know it's got up to 56%. Have you looked at how do we get more folks to participate in the survey? Because, we're at 56%. We're just a little bit over a half of the staff employed by the district that responded to the survey.
Yeah, that we continue to set goals. We'd love to be at 75%. And so just like this past year, we took an action to go set up those computers in a place where, people could have the opportunity to respond. I think we're going to continue to do that every year, is look at what are the different opportunities that we have to get more participation. Now, we do extend the date to give people more time to do it. One of the things that we were trying to do this past year also is in the buildings, as they're having those professional learnings on Friday, can we give a little bit of that time for them to respond to the survey? So we're trying to, all different kind of ideas, but we're setting goals for ourselves to see that increase.
Gary?
A couple of things. What I'm not so concerned about, I think, is built into every district, the disconnect between the district level leadership and at the building. The farther away you get from the building, the less connected it is. I think we can do a better job, but I think to really focus in overall morale it will help, but I think there are other areas, particularly the student management issue. I think that that actually probably bubbles over and creates other disgruntlement in other areas because they're struggling with those students. So I like the idea that we're directing more resources into that area this year, and I think it will help. The other that is not part of this survey, but I would be interested in knowing what the level, how many staff we've lost this year, particularly are those that beyond, those less than retirement, we're going to, have those, but those that are changing districts, that are leaving the district before retirement, what those numbers are. So at some point, if you could share that with me, I would appreciate it.
Okay. We'll work with Linda and see if we can pull that data.
Other questions? Go ahead.
Do you know if there's a question on there that asks if they've replied previously to a survey so that we can see if there's reliable growth as experienced by an individual? So when we're comparing scores between years, it could be totally different people that have participated each time.
Could be.
Would there be benefit in adding a question in there to see if they had previously?
I'd say survey vendors don't typically like to do that because people interpret that as you're breaching confidentiality if you're tracking me.
So one of the challenges, that's a great question. One of the challenges within that is if you move from a simple cohort to a matched cohort, if you're going to have a matched cohort, then you have to collect data on the people. And even if that's through a third-party vendor, one of the things we've struggled with in our district is people, even when we run it through a third-party vendor, people don't take it because they're concerned that these results will come back to them. And if then we start to put your name and your teaching position or your job role with us, et cetera, I think that'll be an additional hill.
What how far down does K-12 do for the personal identifiers? Do they do age brackets, gender, and just job title?
Yeah, and building.
And, well, yeah, and building, okay, okay.
Other questions or comments?
Just a
Raphael?
couple of quick questions, John. So, the first of which, so frequency. I mean, are we good just once a year? Is it better doing it mid-year and then end of the year? Has there been any thought to that?
We've had discussion and with our vendor. Actually, doing it once a year is almost too often
Okay.
because you don't give yourself enough time to implement the actions. But we felt it really important to do it again this year. We know we're going through a lot of change, so we want to measure how are we doing through this change cycle.
So when it was done the year before, I know this year was done in April.
It was March.
So-
It was the March of the year before.
So it would have been March 2017, so roughly a full
Roughly,
year,
yeah.
okay. The other one was just more of a comment, so along the same lines with Kristen, I'd be interested to see, with work groups, if there was anything that we would ask specifically, to specific work groups, whether it was our grounds and maintenance, whether it was our bus drivers, whether secretaries, teachers, whomever that would be, and even to allow even something optional to say, what would you like to see improved? What suggestions do you have for a specific department? What are those types of things that could be picked up potentially and shared with that departmental leadership to, potentially take something actionable to do with, right? So,
Yeah, we do have an opportunity with the vendor so this question kind of is that open-ended question, and if they could pull the responses by work group, this would help give us some of that. They've just aggregated it today for us.
the thing is, like, with the wording, though, I mean, if it said specific to your work group,
Yep.
you know what I mean? I mean, that's gonna be a difference. If I'm looking at that and I'm taking the survey, I'm thinking, okay, I'm thinking the whole entire district as opposed to my specific job type or work group. And to me, there's a big difference in that.
Okay.
Whereas, I might not be able to affect the entire district. If I see something that's, taking a lot of time for somebody or has a big expense for my job type or my department or, work group, that's an opportunity to do something with that.
And I think you've hit on it too, Rod, is the way to increase the response rate is to demonstrate that you're taking the responses seriously and that you are taking action and listening to them.
Right.
So a year is a really quick time to have anything that was implemented as a result of. But do these, I know that these results get shared, how much are they broken down by facility and shared at facility level?
Yeah, so we share the overall, so we'll send this
Right.
out to everyone. But the buildings, they get their reports as well.
They get them, but it's not something that we put on our site as a breakdown by facility to see which facility people may be more dissatisfied.
No, not from a district level, but they get their individual ones.
Is that something that we can see?
Board member, if you want that information, you can certainly request it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I would just say, this is year 11 for me on this, and when I started, there was no child left behind that was being implemented, and we went through that and saw amazing changes, and not all for the positive. We've seen attacks on public higher education and K-12 public education funding over the last number of years. Collective bargaining law changes, changes across the board in public education, and it's pretty easy to say the district is doing this to us. The only thing that I've heard since we've had Dr. Buck here, and I just want to make this statement, is from his mouth is we have amazing staff in our district that are doing really good things. It doesn't mean because we say there's room for improvement that we have staff that are doing a bad job now, but he's our one employee for the school board, and we have asked him, because of the data, because of what we're seeing in trends, and not for all students, but for certain populations of students, they're not succeeding at the level in our district that we need them and think they could succeed. And so there is room for improvement. And we've played the game of these one-offs, as we've talked about, and there are these silver bullets that are going to be the answer to all of this, and they may be part of the puzzle to get at all of this, but they're not showing us to this point that they're making enough of a difference. And Dr. Buck and the administrative team that he's put together now, I know, believe in every one of our staff, teachers, custodians, food and nutrition. I've never seen a superintendent since I've been here be down in the buildings and talking one-on-one and asking for feedback. And as he said, it's not perfect, but we're working on that. The high reliability schools in the Marzano framework, it is one framework. It's a place to start a common language, and I don't think that the board sees this necessarily as the only possible answer, but it seems like a pretty good place to be working from in terms of what the schools and the principals and the staff and the teachers talk about together. And what Dr. Buck just mentioned in terms of the staff having a voice in helping determine what is the safe, supportive, and collaborative environment for their kids to succeed, that's critical. You just heard that out of the superintendent's mouth. So we as a board are holding him responsible through the work that you're doing down into the buildings, and the teachers and the custodians and the food and nutrition workers and the bus drivers to help on that plan. And you also heard that if you don't agree with it, let's talk about it. We're not looking to punish people here, and I've not heard anything ever out of Dr. Buck's mouth to lead me to think otherwise. So as we're all struggling, and I tell you, this board, we struggle every day. We're frustrated. I looked at those words. We feel overwhelmed. I mean, we're constantly fighting the battle at the legislative level. We're trying to help people understand the good stuff that we see coming through the district. We're frustrated, but I tell you, for me and from the other board members I talked to, we're also very optimistic and see lots of opportunities, more so than I've seen in the last 11 years, but it's going to take teamwork. And so I'm just hoping that all of us in the district, the shared community here, the community, the parents, people in different interest groups, the teachers and the staff can all come together and talk about this, because what we do as a volunteer on this board is for the kids, and I believe that every one of our administrators and teachers and staff are here for that same reason. And if they're not, they need to speak up and get on board and help us figure out how that's going to work. They likely have wonderful ideas. They need to be willing to share that, and I think, at least from the board's perspective and what I'm hearing out of Dr. Buck's mouth, that he's encouraging that and welcoming that. So that's the message I have, and I thank the staff that took the time to help give us this input, that we'll talk to administrators and Dr. Buck during the forums and when he goes out and others go out to reach. And the board members, I would just challenge the board members as well. Sometimes we do better than others, but in terms of us getting out and visiting with the schools, we take vacation time to go out and meet with schools every year, and all of us have other job responsibilities, but that's part of what we're doing on the board as well, to hear that and see what's working and what's not. And our emails and our phone numbers are all out there too, and some people do reach out to us, so feel free to do that if that would help. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we are going to take a couple-minute short recess, and the board is going to move into a future work session, and we're going to move some chairs and tables around down in the front here and meet with the administration. Audience is certainly welcome to remain with us and listen to the conversation as much as you'd like.